Mr. Mitchell banned all food and drinks from biology class, including water, so when my diabetic classmate started having a sugar crash, I gave him my hidden juice box, and Mitchell dusted it for fingerprints like a crime scene. What's the dumbest reason you got in trouble at school? Mr. Mitchell had one rule he enforced like his life depended on it. Absolutely no food or drinks in his AP biology classroom, not even water bottles with lids. He claimed that even a single drop of liquid could ruin thousands of dollars of lab equipment, and that food attracted ants, which would contaminate his specimens. On the first day of school, he spent 40 minutes showing us photos of ant infestations and destroyed microscopes from previous schools, then made us sign contracts promising we'd never bring any food or drinks into his room. He'd actually gotten 3 kids suspended last year for having cough drops, which weren't even technically food. The man would patrol the room during tests, looking for hidden water bottles like he was searching for weapons. His class was right before lunch, which meant we sat there for 90 minutes absolutely dying of thirst while doing complicated labs. Kids would literally run to the water fountain the second his class ended, sometimes missing the beginning of their next period. One girl fainted during a dissection unit because she was dehydrated, but Mr. Mitchell said she should have hydrated better before class. Parents complained, but the administration backed him up because his test scores were the highest in the district. He even banned gum after finding a piece stuck under a desk, installing cameras to catch anyone chewing. We all kept energy bars and drinks in our lockers, cramming them down in the 4 minutes between classes, but it was never enough during his double period labs. I started keeping a juice box hidden in my backpack after nearly passing out during a 3-hour practice AP exam he made us take. It was one of those tiny apple juice boxes from elementary school, and I kept it in a hidden pocket just in case I absolutely couldn't make it through class. I never planned to drink it, but knowing it was there made me feel less panicked about the dehydration. My friend Stella knew about it because she'd seen me sneak it in one morning, but she never said anything because she understood how insane the situation was. We were doing a lab about forensic science, learning how to dust for fingerprints and collect evidence from crime scenes. Mr. Mitchell was extra excited, showing us how real investigators could solve crimes from the tiniest details people left behind. About halfway through class, Miles, who sat next to me, started acting strange. He was sweating and shaking, and when he tried to write, his hands were trembling so bad he dropped his pencil. I knew he was diabetic because I'd seen him with his glucose monitor, and I recognized what was happening because my cousin had type 1 diabetes. Miles whispered that his blood sugar was crashing and he needed sugar immediately, but his glucose tablets were in his locker, and Mr. Mitchell had already refused to let someone leave to use the bathroom earlier. Miles tried to raise his hand, but his arm was shaking too much, and then he slumped forward onto the lab table. A couple kids gasped, but Mr. Mitchell was across the room helping another group and didn't notice. Miles mumbled that he was about to pass out, and I knew if he went unconscious, it would be a serious medical emergency. I looked at Miles, then at my backpack where the juice box was hidden, then at Mr. Mitchell's back. I knew exactly what would happen if I got caught, but I also knew what would happen if Miles went into a diabetic coma. I grabbed the juice box from my backpack and shoved it at him, ripping the straw off and pushing it into the box. He drank it desperately while I blocked him from view with my body, praying Mr. Mitchell wouldn't turn around. The sugar hit his system fast, and within 2 minutes his color came back and his hands stopped shaking. The bell rang and Miles stumbled out to go to the nurse, still dizzy and disoriented from the sugar crash. I was so focused on making sure he made it out the door that I didn't notice he'd left the empty juice box sitting right there on the lab table. By the time I realized, Mr. Mitchell was already walking between the stations to collect our work, and I couldn't grab it without him seeing. The next morning, Mr. Mitchell was standing at the front of the room with a trash can from our lab station on his desk, wearing actual latex gloves. He had this huge grin on his face as he pulled out the empty juice box, holding it up like he'd found buried treasure. "Someone broke the most important rule in my classroom yesterday," he announced, his eyes scanning the room like he was looking for a serial killer. "But they gave me the perfect opportunity to demonstrate real forensic science." He pulled out the fingerprinting kit we'd used yesterday, and his smile got even wider. "We're going to dust this juice box for prints and match them to our fingerprint records from yesterday's lab." What a perfect teachable moment about how criminals always leave evidence behind. I watched Mr. Mitchell dust that juice box like he was processing evidence at an actual crime scene. He had on latex gloves and everything, using the same fingerprint powder we'd practiced with yesterday. My hands were sweating so bad I had to wipe them on my jeans under the desk. Stella kept glancing at me with this worried look, but I couldn't meet her eyes. The whole class was dead silent, watching him brush the powder across the cardboard with these careful, deliberate strokes. "Look at these beautiful ridge patterns," he said, holding the box up to the light. "Whoever touched this left perfect prints. The oils from their fingers, the unique patterns that identify them. It's all right here." He was practically glowing with excitement. "This is exactly what real forensic scientists do when they process evidence." He pulled out the stack of fingerprint cards we'd made yesterday during the lab. We'd all pressed our fingers onto the cards, rolled them carefully to get complete prints for our forensics unit. Now he was laying them out on his desk like he was about to solve a murder. "Let's see who our rule breaker is," he announced, picking up the first card. He held it next to the juice box, comparing the patterns with this little magnifying glass. Not this one. He set it aside and picked up the next card, then the next. Some kids were leaning forward, fascinated by the process. Others looked really uncomfortable. I saw a few people exchange worried glances. Nobody said anything though. We all just watched him work through the stack, card by card. Miles was sitting frozen at his desk, still looking pale from yesterday's sugar crash. His hands were clenched in his lap, and he kept staring down at his notebook like it held the secrets of the universe. When someone behind us whispered something about how the juice might have saved someone's life, Miles's shoulders tensed up. He still wouldn't look at anyone. Mr. Mitchell had gone through about half the cards when he suddenly stopped. His whole face changed, this slow smile spreading across it like he'd just won the lottery. He held up one of the fingerprint cards, comparing it to the prints on the juice box one more time. "Well, well, well," he said, but he didn't announce whose card it was. He just stood there holding it with this satisfied look, like a cat that caught a mouse. "We have a match." The tension in the room was suffocating. Everyone was looking around, trying to figure out who it was. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Then the bell rang. Mr. Mitchell carefully placed the matching fingerprint card in a plastic bag, like it was evidence he needed to preserve. "We'll continue this tomorrow," he announced as everyone started packing up. "I want whoever did this to think long and hard about coming forward. Confession is always better than being caught." I grabbed my stuff and basically ran out of the room, my legs feeling like jelly. In the hallway, way, Stella caught my arm and pulled me aside near the water fountain. That was your card, wasn't it? She whispered, looking around to make sure nobody was listening. I couldn't even answer. My throat felt completely closed up. Listen, she said, her voice urgent. I'll say it was mine. I'll tell him I gave Miles the juice. No way. I managed to get out. You can't do that. Why not? You saved Miles's life. That matters more than some stupid rule. Stella, you'd get suspended. It would go on your college applications. So will yours if he catches you. We argued in hushed voices until the warning bell rang for next period. She grabbed my shoulders and looked me right in the eyes. Think about it, okay? I'm serious. I'll take the fall. At lunch, the entire cafeteria was buzzing about Mr. Mitchell's investigation. It was literally all anyone could talk about. $20 says it was someone in the back row, this kid from my English class was saying. They could have hidden it easier. Nah, Mitchell would have seen them. Had to be someone in the middle, blocked by other people. Who even cares? Another girl said. It's just juice. My little brother drinks like 10 of those a day. Yeah, but in Mitchell's class, that's basically a death sentence for your GPA. I tried to eat my sandwich, but it tasted like cardboard. Across the cafeteria, I spotted Miles sitting alone at a corner table. He had a tray of food in front of him, but wasn't touching any of it, just pushing the apple around with his finger. That evening, I was trying to focus on my calculus homework when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was just 3 words. Thank you. M. I knew it was Miles. My finger hovered over the reply button for a second, but then I thought about digital evidence and trails and deleted it immediately. I turned my phone face down and tried to go back to derivatives, but the numbers kept swimming around on the page. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept playing out scenarios in my head. There's something really strange about a teacher who cares more about his perfect classroom than a kid having a medical emergency. Mr. Mitchell's whole fingerprint investigation feels less like teaching and more like he's trying to prove some weird point about his power in that room. If I confessed, I'd definitely get suspended. It would go on my permanent record. My parents would freak out. But if I didn't confess, Mr. Mitchell would just announce it anyway. He had my fingerprint card. He had proof. I must have dozed off eventually because suddenly my alarm was going off and pale morning light was coming through my window. My stomach felt like it was full of rocks as I got ready for school. When I walked into AP Biology, the entire room looked different. Mr. Mitchell had rearranged all the desks into a huge circle. No hiding in the back row today. No blocked views. We were all going to have to look at each other. Sit anywhere you like, Mr. Mitchell said cheerfully. Too cheerfully. On his desk, I could see my fingerprint card in its plastic bag, like Exhibit A in a trial. Once everyone was seated, he stood in the center of the circle like he was about to perform Shakespeare. Today, we're going to have a discussion about evidence, he began. In the real world, forensic scientists present their findings to investigators, lawyers, juries. Evidence tells a story, and our evidence tells quite a story, doesn't it? He started walking slowly around the inside of the circle, making eye contact with each student. So let's reconstruct what happened. What did people observe during yesterday's lab? Silence. Nobody wanted to be the first to speak. Come now, Mr. Mitchell said. Someone must have seen something. Science is about observation. Finally, Brianna Leone raised her hand tentatively. I saw someone near Miles's table during the fingerprinting demo, when we were working on collecting prints from the glass slides. Excellent observation, Brianna. Anyone else? More silence. Miles was staring at his hands, which were shaking slightly. I wondered if his blood sugar was okay. Mr. Mitchell pulled out the student handbook and started reading. According to section 4.3, bringing food or drink into a science laboratory is grounds for automatic suspension. Furthermore, he flipped a few pages. Section 4. 3.5 states that lying or withholding information during an official investigation is a separate violation that can result in additional disciplinary action. The threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. A few kids shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Miles suddenly raised his hand, and everyone turned to look at him. His face was red and his voice cracked when he started to speak. Mr. Mitchell, But then he stopped, just completely froze up. Mr. Mitchell walked over and stood right in front of him. Yes, Miles? Do you have testimony to share with the class? Miles opened his mouth again, but nothing came out. He shook his head and looked back down at his desk. That's when I noticed Eric Zamora had his phone out under his desk, angled up slightly. He was recording this whole thing. A few other kids noticed too, and I saw at least 2 more phones come out, hidden behind backpacks and notebooks. Everyone could sense something big was about to happen. Well, Mr. Mitchell said, returning to the center of the circle. If no one wants to contribute, I have another source of evidence, the security camera. He pointed to the corner of the room where a small camera was mounted. I've requested the footage from yesterday's class. Tomorrow, we'll watch it together. Consider it a lesson in how modern technology aids investigation. He smiled at all of us, and a lesson in consequences. After class, Marco Rocha caught up with Miles in the hallway. I could hear them as I walked behind. Marco's voice was getting heated. Dude, you have to tell someone, Marco was saying. This is insane. You almost died yesterday. Just drop it, Miles muttered, but Marco grabbed his arm. No, I've been watching you struggle all year. Remember last month during the frog dissection? You were shaking so bad you couldn't hold the scalpel. And that time during the microscope lab when you had to put your head down? Marco's face was red with frustration. How many times are you gonna let this happen? Miles pulled away and walked off without answering. Marco stood there for a second, then punched a locker so hard I jumped. That afternoon, Ashlyn Carney found me at my locker. Hey, so I'm creating a group chat. People are pissed about what Mitchell's doing. Some kids want to do something about it. She showed me her phone. The chat was called Juicebox Justice and already had like 30 people in it. The messages were flying by so fast I could barely read them. Some people want to all bring juice boxes tomorrow, she said. Like a protest. That's just gonna make things worse, I said. Maybe. Or maybe it'll show him he can't treat us like criminals. I found out that night that Miles had told his parents everything. My mom got a call from another parent in our class, and suddenly the whole parent network was buzzing. Miles's parents were demanding a meeting with the principal about Mr. Mitchell's rules that almost killed their son. Is this about you? My mom asked after she hung up. Did something happen in biology? I couldn't lie to her. I told her everything. The juice box, Miles's emergency, the investigation. Her face went through about 10 different emotions. You saved that boy's life, she finally said. And that teacher wants to suspend you for it? Yeah, she grabbed her phone. I'm calling the principal right now. Mom, no. Don't mom, know me. This is ridiculous. Apparently she wasn't the only parent who called. Brianna's mom was especially furious since Brianna had been hospitalized for dehydration in Mr. Mitchell's class last year. The principal's voicemail was probably full by morning. That night, Mr. Mitchell sent out a class email with the subject line, Integrity in Science. I read it 3 times, each time getting more angry. Dear students, it began. Today's events have presented us us with a valuable teaching moment about choices and consequences. While good intentions are admirable, breaking established rules undermines the foundation of scientific discipline and academic integrity. A true scientist finds solutions within established parameters, not by violating protocols. Tomorrow's class will demonstrate how evidence always reveals the truth and how every action has consequences. This is not just about a juice box. It's about the principles that govern both science and society. He signed it, Mr. Mitchell, AP Biology, like he was some kind of supreme authority on morality. The next morning, there was definitely tension in the hallway. I saw at least 5 kids with juice boxes sticking out of their backpack pockets, not even trying to hide them. Some people nodded at me as I passed, like we were all in on some secret together. When I got to AP Biology, Mr. Mitchell had his laptop already connected to the projector. The security footage file was open on his desktop, labeled with yesterday's date and time. He looked way too excited about this. Before he could start, the principal walked in. She had this tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning, everyone," she said. "I just wanted to stop by and remind you all that the administration fully supports Mr. Mitchell's classroom management techniques. His test scores speak for themselves. Academic excellence requires discipline." She looked around the room like she was daring someone to argue, then left so fast her heels clicked double time down the hallway. Mr. Mitchell's smile got even bigger. "Now then, let's examine the evidence." The video started playing on the screen. It was grainy, and the angle was weird. The camera only caught about 2/3 of the classroom. You could see movement near Miles's table right around the time he started having his emergency. Someone leaning over, reaching across to him, but faces weren't clear. "Watch carefully," Mr. Mitchell narrated. "Evidence doesn't lie, even when people do." Then, for just a second, you could see part of a backpack as someone moved. My backpack, with that stupid purple butterfly patch my little sister had sewn on last year. It was so distinctive, so obviously mine. Mr. Mitchell paused the video right on that frame. "Interesting backpack, very unique decoration." He turned to face the class. "Who owns the backpack with the purple butterfly patch?" Dead silence. I could feel everyone trying not to look at me. Stella started to raise her hand, but I grabbed her wrist under the desk. Then the door opened. The nurse stood there looking directly at me. "I need to see you immediately," she said. "Please bring your things." Mr. Mitchell's smile was triumphant. "How convenient. Class, we'll continue this investigation tomorrow. Perhaps by then, someone will have learned the value of honesty." As I walked past Miles's desk, he finally looked up at me. His eyes were red like he'd been crying. "I'm sorry," he mouthed silently. In the hallway, the nurse put her hand on my shoulder. "Don't worry, honey. You're not in trouble. Well, not the kind Mr. Mitchell thinks." She led me to the conference room instead of the principal's office. Through the window, I could see people inside, adults in business clothes, and Miles was there too. "They asked for you specifically," the nurse said, opening the door. Inside, Miles was sitting between 2 adults who had to be his parents. Same dark hair, same worried expression. There was also a woman in a suit with a briefcase who looked all business. The principal sat at the head of the table with a suspension form in front of her. My name already filled in at the top. Miles's mom stood up the second I walked in. "You're the one who saved him?" Before I could answer, she had her arms around me, hugging me tight. "Thank you. Thank you so much." The nurse told us his blood sugar was at 42. "Do you know how dangerous that is?" "Mrs. Scanlon, please sit down," the principal said, but her voice was less certain than usual. Miles's dad wasn't smiling. "We need to discuss why my son's life was in danger in the first place." Mr. Mitchell just turned his classroom into CSI Biology Edition, complete with dramatic circle seating and slow-motion evidence reveals. Someone should tell him teaching isn't supposed to feel like a crime show audition, and why this young woman is being punished for saving him. The woman in the suit opened her briefcase. "I'm Jennifer Huang, the Scanlon's attorney. I have here Miles's complete medical history, his type 1 diabetes diagnosis, and his 504 plan, which the school is legally required to accommodate." She spread papers across the table. "I also have documentation of 3 previous incidents in Mr. Mitchell's classroom, where Miles experienced hypoglycemic episodes, but was too afraid to treat them properly." "Mr. Mitchell has rules," the principal started. "Rules that violate the Americans with Disabilities Act," the lawyer interrupted, "and the state's Good Samaritan laws that protect individuals who provide emergency medical assistance." I finally found my voice. He was shaking so bad he couldn't hold his pencil. He tried to raise his hand, but his arm wouldn't work. "My cousin has type 1. I've seen what happens when blood sugar crashes. Was I supposed to just watch?" Miles spoke up, his voice cracking. "She saved my life. That's not an exaggeration. The nurse said if my blood sugar had dropped any lower, I could have had seizures. I could have gone into a coma." The lawyer pulled out another document. "This is a liability assessment. If the school punishes a student for preventing a medical emergency, especially one involving a disabled student being denied reasonable accommodation, the district's legal exposure would be substantial." The principal stared at the suspension form for a long moment. Then the door burst open and more parents and students crowded in. Brianna with her parents, 2 other kids from our class with their families. "Sorry we're late," Brianna's mom said, slapping a folder on the table. "ER records from when my daughter was hospitalized for dehydration in Mr. Mitchell's class. The doctor said she could have had kidney damage." More parents shared their stories. Migraines from dehydration, kids too scared to ask for water, grades dropping because students couldn't concentrate. The principal looked overwhelmed. "I need to call Mr. Mitchell in," she finally said. When Mr. Mitchell arrived and saw all the parents, his confident expression cracked for just a second. The principal explained the situation, and he immediately went on defense. "My policy protects valuable equipment and maintains discipline. Students who require accommodations should make arrangements." "What arrangements?" Miles's dad interrupted. "You wouldn't let him keep glucose tablets at his desk." The conversation got heated fast. The lawyer mentioned liability, parents talked about medical bills, and Eric's mom pulled out her phone to show the video Eric had secretly recorded. Mr. Mitchell treating the investigation like some kind of game show. "This already has 200,000 views on TikTok," she said. "The comments are not favorable." The principal went pale. More students arrived with Ashlyn, carrying a petition with hundreds of signatures. Marco came with his dad, talking about watching his best friend suffer all year and being too scared to help. Finally, the principal stood up. "Mr. Mitchell, effective immediately. Your no food and drink policy is suspended. Students may have water and medical snacks as needed." "This is ridiculous." Mr. Mitchell's face was purple. "You're undermining my authority. Your authority nearly killed a student," the lawyer said flatly. The principal picked up my suspension form and fed it into the shredder. "Furthermore, she'll receive a commendation for emergency medical assistance." Mr. Mitchell stared at us all for a moment, then walked out without a word. Through the window, we could see him stalking down down the hallway like a storm cloud. The next day, there was a case of water bottles on Mr. Mitchell's desk with a note from administration about the new policy. He read it in a flat voice without looking at anyone, then started teaching like nothing had happened, except everything had happened. Miles started keeping juice boxes openly on his desk. Other kids brought water bottles. Mr. Mitchell didn't say anything, but you could see something had broken in him. The commanding presence that used to fill the room had deflated. Within a week, Eric's video hit 2 million views. Comments poured in from students everywhere with similar stories. The school board announced they were reviewing all teacher policies district-wide. Brianna organized a hydration celebration, where everyone brought extra water to share. We stacked it all on the back lab table like a monument. Mr. Mitchell just stared at it, then went to his desk. Marco did a presentation about type 1 diabetes with Miles's permission. They explained what hypoglycemia feels like, how fast it can turn dangerous. Mr. Mitchell had to sit through it as part of his new professional development requirements. Stella made stickers that said medical emergency hero with a cartoon juice box wearing a cape. They ended up everywhere. Lockers, notebooks, water bottles. Even some teachers wore them. The local news picked up the story. They interviewed me in the parking lot, asking how it felt to be called a hero. I'm not a hero, I said. I just did what anyone would do if they weren't afraid of getting in trouble. Nobody should have to choose between following rules and saving someone's life. Mr. Mitchell refused to comment, but they caught him walking to his car, shoulders hunched, looking defeated. A month later, he barely resembled the teacher who used to patrol the classroom like a prison guard. He taught his lessons in a monotone voice, never making eye contact. The passionate tangents about biology, the excited demonstrations, all gone. Miles brought me a card with a photo from his birthday party. His whole family was there, everyone smiling. Inside, his mom had written, "This birthday happened because of you." At the bottom, Miles had added, "Thanks for breaking the rules. Thanks for choosing me over Mitchell." I kept that card in my backpack, in the same pocket where I used to hide the juice box. Sometimes I pulled it out to remind myself that doing the right thing isn't always the same as following the rules. So anyway, that's how our AP biology class started a revolution with a juice box. Mr. Mitchell still teaches, but now we have water bottles, snacks when needed, and most importantly, we learned that saving someone's life matters more than following bad rules. Thanks for letting me wonder and explore right alongside you today. We uncovered some pretty fascinating questions together. Until our next curious adventure, subscribe for more content like this.